Mr. Jairaj, who's here, and also our my faculty colleagues and dear students. I would like to welcome all of you to the Distinguished Speaker Series and this webinar on career re-engineering after COVID-19. I would like to introduce Dr. Pierre AL-KHOURY, who is an intellectual and thought leader. He lives in Beirut in Lebanon, much sought after figure in the Middle East and advisor to many governments. Dr. Pierre AL-KHOURY is an academician and he is Vice President for Development and Dean of the Faculty of Business and Insurance, Lebanese German University. He is Secretary General of the Lebanese Economic Association. He is an author and researcher with 4 books and 40 published research, hundreds of newspapers and magazine articles. In fact, he is the writer of the first book in the Arab world on online learning, digital and electronic learning in the Arab world, published by Lambert Academic Publishing 2015, and it's available on Amazon. Dr. Pierre AL-KHOURY is a strategist and he has 15 years of banking experience, mainly in BDL, CBK, and in he's associated with the International Monetary Fund. He's a specialist in online teaching with extensive certification from the University of California, Irvine, USA. I would now like to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Rahul Dige, who is the moderator for this webinar, who will speak for a short while and give you the do's and don'ts during this 1-hour lecture. And then I would invite Dr. Pierre AL-KHOURY to enlighten us on career re-engineering after COVID-19. Thank you very much and welcome Dr. Pierre once again.
Thank you. Are we waiting for Dr. Rahul now, true?
Yes, we're waiting for Dr. Rahul.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome, Dr. AL-KHOURY.
Thank you, most welcome.
Very good morning to everyone and welcome to this distinguished speaker series, as the dean has already explained. We have a good mix of students as well as faculty, distinguished faculty on the call, so which is very nice. So I will explain. I'll take a minute to explain the modalities of how we are going to run this call, run this meeting. The first 30 to 40 minutes will be a one-way talk delivered by our speaker. At that time, all of us will be in mute mode, and anyone who has a question can paste or type the question in the Zoom chat, group chat. I will pass on those questions to Dr. AL-KHOURY and he will take those questions in the order that he feels most relevant. So we will all be in mute throughout the call. If you have a question, please just type it in the Zoom chat and I will pass the question on. So that is the best way to begin with. Maybe at a later point, if we feel comfortable later in the series, we may have a two-way conversations. But at this point, this is the best situation or best arrangement that we have. So please, one other request is in the Zoom chat, since there are going to be people pasting questions or typing questions. Other chat or other discussions, I would request people to take those offline with each other. Okay, so with that, let us begin. Dr. AL-KHOURY, welcome and good morning once again.
Thank you, Doctor, and welcome everybody. Thank you for being present today I want to first thank Dean Captain Najaraj and you, Dr. Raoul, and Mr. Jairaj, and everybody, distinguished faculty members, students, whoever is attending this morning, this remote session. And I feel proud to talk to this professional community in India, the country that I admire. And I admire the kind of quality of specialists that India is actually producing to India and to the world. And this was one of my favorite articles that I wrote about, I think 2 years before, a comparison between the Indian model and the Chinese model. And I said that India is following the natural selection process that comes from chaos, that where chaos produces the best to the community. And I visited both countries, China and India. I see how much China is disciplined between two hyphens, and how much India is going natural. I hope you understand what I mean. And this naturality is producing the best for India and the world. You know, now Indians are everywhere. Top management around the world is now characterized by its Indianization. Let me start immediately with the presentation. I will start with what went on before the pandemic, the effect of pandemic, and where we are heading to in the future. Actually, I've selected some unemployment rates of 2019, where USA was recording high in employment with around 3%, 3.5% unemployment in general. And a country like mine, Lebanon, was on top of the list of unemployment with 35, and I think you should think about a higher rate, actually, because here numbers are not actually transparent. South Africa, that is the leading economy in Africa, was around 30, so it was around 28%. As you say, you can see there is an assortment of European countries in the middle: Finland, France, Italy, Spain, Greece, and even Brazil with 13%. All these figures were actually telling us one story. There is only one country that is below the borderline, that was the US. Actually, if you are somehow approaching the international economics, you know that the latest administration of America has put America first, even on the account of the interests of the international economy. And this should be clear in what we see, what we can see in this picture. One more thing is that these figures do not include the effect of people who are fed up from searching for work. As you know, economists among you know that this category is not actually included in the labor force and then excluded from the calculation of the unemployment rate. And this category is a growing category because of the new economy that we are going to explain later on in this presentation. Because these people can no more find themselves in the new economy, and they are not ready to compromise and work whatever work. So they become not looking for work. Actually, if we add this category, that is people willing to work but cannot find themselves in what is offered in the job market, these rates may be at least multiplied by 1.3 to 1.5. Doctor, can you please flip the presentation page? The next page. Next page, please. Yes. Now, welcome to India. I took from April 19 to January 20. It's clear that India is somewhere below the 10% critical unemployment rate. But again, India was 7.8%, and taking also into consideration the effect of people who are fed up from searching for work. These numbers may increase, but still India was in a moderate position before the pandemic when looking at the effect of unemployment on the economy. Please. Next slide. Okay. Projections at the beginning of the pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, economists at the Fed were actually projecting the effects as follows. Total unemployment reduction of 47 million workers. The early estimates of the effect of the pandemic. Total employment reduction of 47 million workers. That is 1/3 of the workforce that will not be employed. How bad things could get is presented with this scenario. Actually, this scenario is a preliminary scenario of the effect of the pandemic. But again, it is driven by the forces that were pushing before the pandemic for more unemployment. You know, pandemic is very bad. The pandemic is very bad, but at the same time, it opened opportunity for those who are ready for remote work. And I think the education sector is a very good example of that. Universities and schools who were ready to work efficiently from a remote place will survive better than those who cannot do so. And this is especially important for a country like the USA. You know that before the pandemic, only 16% of companies in the United States were actually accepting remote work. And only 3% of the American labor force was involved in remote work. This is also, you can see it again, although the United States is one of the best countries when you look at dealing with remote work. But in education, again, it's the same story. There is below 30% of students who are actually using a hybrid method of education between physical class and remote education. No matter what, and even with all these integration of the online system and remote work in the US is subject to 33% unemployment. Let's look now at the early estimates of the effect of the pandemic on the world GDP. The first one above is how was the economy going normally? How was the world GDP going normally? The second one, the blue one, was when actually the pandemic started in China. And this is the estimates was that during Q1 of 2020, things would start to improve until we reach back the point that we left in our estimates before the pandemic. When the outbreak took an international profile, the story starts to be totally different. As you can see in the last chart, that there was a steep decrease to reach around something between 2 and 3% minus growth. And again, the estimates was for the economy to go back to normal was 2% growth in international GDP, again in Q1. That proved not to be true, actually. What can we conclude from this? is now with the latest estimates of the International Monetary Fund. Sure, we are not going to do whatever positive contribution toward GDP in 2020. Can we move on, please, Professor? Yes. The latest trend of expectations that were done in 2012 for unemployment rate in the world. If you can see, we had a great improvement in employment before the international financial crisis. That is clear between 2003 and 2007. Rates went below 5.5% international unemployment, but due to the international financial crisis, things started to worsen, and unemployment peaked in 2009. Then there was an improvement, a short-term improvement in employment that lasted for 2011, and then starting 2012, things started to worsen again. And the last 6 bars were the expectations of the economists for the coming years until 2018. As you can see, the world was not optimistic about what's going to be in the coming 5-6 years. And inflation, unemployment rate were expected to reach 6.4% or 6.5% in 2018, which was totally true. But what is important here, if you look at the 2 decreases in unemployment, the epoch of 2003-2007, and then to 2009-2010. You see that the first wave was really solid, while the second wave was really very shorter, because actually the recovery of the international economy from the effects of the international financial crisis was not really driven by real economic factors. Rather, it was driven by financial and monetary easing policies that couldn't last for long. And every time the government, central banks went out of easing measures, unemployment took its original trend to go out in the international economy. Yes, please. What is the new economy? And again, I think Indians should be the best people in the world to understand the meaning of the new economy, because I think these people, Indians, are pioneers in getting into this economy. But let's give a simple definition of what the new economy is. It is originally referred to as ongoing development, evolved from the nations of the classical notions of the classical economy as a result, not only from the transition from manufacturing-based to service-based economy, a thing that we all agree about. We have a huge trend for decrease in the contribution of manufacturing economy in total GDP versus a huge increase in services, service contribution in the international GDP or international economy. It is not just this. It is also meant the new horizons resulted from the constant emerging of new parameters of new technology and innovations, and this is the name of the game. The name of the game is that the new economy is characterized by how much combination of variables now the world economy is doing every single moment. because the process of innovation and the new technology and how this innovation is applied to so many sectors at the same time in the economy worldwide, and how these sectors are reacting by changing behavior, either internally or on the side of their relation with the external environment, is actually huge. The number of calculation is becoming actually unable to be sorted in any short term, even with the power of analytics, even with the power of data, even with the growing number of researchers in the most developed countries in the world today. For this, and to understand better what the new economy is, I want to refer to this genius, Peter Drucker. 1946, Peter Drucker said, in an economy based on knowledge, that is a new economy. The new economy is the economy based on knowledge, based on innovation and technology. Innovation and technology, knowledge. The knowledge worker, the knowledge worker, the knowledge worker, somebody like most Indians, is the single greatest asset, the single greatest asset. An organization, he explained, is always in competition for its most essential resource. Before it was metals, it was fuel, it was whatever in the past. But now, with the economy based on knowledge, the single greatest asset is the knowledge worker, is you, are your brains. These people are qualified, knowledgeable, and dedicated for their work. Qualified, knowledgeable, and dedicated. And here's the most important point in what Drucker said. It is that fact in turn reserves the traditional relationship between the organization and its employees. It's a great sentence, because this reversal is now what we are facing in the new world. You are now the greatest assets in a way that you are more important than capital and more important than other resources. And there is a reversal in the relation between you and your corporation. You are more important than your corporation, because you are the most essential resource. The strategic resource now is here in our brains. And because of that, let's look at this picture from the most developed economies in the world. 28 countries in the EU, China, US, South Korea, and the rest of the world. What was the trend for job loss since 2000? As you can see, the EU has lost 400,000 jobs, China 550, and so on, until we reach the rest of the world, that is 100,000. Actually, the rest of the world was 100,000 because the rest of the world here includes less developed countries and less included in the knowledge economy countries. We will see now the effect on India, please. Next slide. Yes. Outsourcing, the big advantage after COVID-19. I'm sure Indians are very well aware of the meaning of the outsourcing. What's in India, and what's in for India? The growth of Indian outsourcing industry has been phenomenal. As markets worldwide are becoming knowledge intensive, the knowledge worker. Remember, India has evolved to become the most preferred destination for knowledge services. Again, knowledge. Knowledge process outsourcing may be soon the biggest revenue grosser in India. Okay, the biggest part, the biggest stake of Indians' GDP, knowledge process outsourcing. India has a large pool of skilled manpower, chartered accountants, MBA, doctors, lawyers, research analysts, etc., which strengthens its position in the knowledge service industry. Look, in 2018, we were in Bangalore together with Dean Captain Najaraj, and we had the opportunity to participate in the Indian Institute of Science at that time. And what I saw there was really phenomenal. Those researchers of 21 years old, 22 years old, 23 years old, who can build models in analytics, actually was highly impressive and phenomenal. And this is what I mean by the knowledge-based economy in India. The shortcoming, the Indian shortcoming, in short, is about two things. The low-trust approach of management, and you see this is, this is an international problem. Managers, corporations do not trust their employees, and they always want to see them under direct control with spies around, etc. And again, the second part of the story, that this builds a generation of employees who cannot work without control. Okay, this helped this. But India is capable of overcoming this in the long run, because India is from the first countries who have heavily invested in remote work, working from home, using your brain to increase your income, to increase your country's GDP, etc. There is an immediate advantage for India. Western firms are now increasingly reliant on business process outsourcing functions provided by companies in India. This was written by SCMP, This Week in Asia. It was a long article in This Week in Asia about the advantages of India after the pandemic and during the pandemic. Yes, please. Okay, some shocking expectations. According to the World Economic Forum, 60% of children entering school today will work in jobs that do not yet exist. Why? Why? Because of the formula that we've discussed before. The formula of the complication of the relationship between innovation, technology, and the business platforms. Okay, this combination gives us always a new way of doing things, and a new way of doing things means the qualification of people to go to the job market will be changing every 4 or 5 years. Okay, so 60% of children entering school today, after 15 years, will be faced by a totally different job platform in the job market. 47% of all American job functions could be automated within 20 years, according to Oxford Martin School of Economics. 100 million global knowledge worker, a global knowledge worker could be affected by robotic process automation by 2025, 4 or 5 years from now. This is according to KPMG. So it's not only incompetent workers, it's again global knowledge workers. 5 to 10%, and the good story is here, of labor would be displaced by intelligent automation, but new job creation will offset losses. Thanks God for this story. Okay. 10% of labor would be displaced by intelligent automation. But this intelligent automation will create new jobs that will offset for the losses. Offsetting for the losses does not mean that same people who were put out of the system will go back with the new jobs. It means that qualified people bring new knowledge workers, updated knowledge workers will be again put in the job market according to their qualifications. Some will be put out if they cannot compete in the new economy. Some projected labor force distribution 2030, and the final effect will be shown 10 years from now. As you can see, Asia will lose 1% of its contribution to total labor force. Latin America will gain 1%, and North America will lose 1%. Europe will lose big with 4%. Africa will win big in 5%, and the Arab countries will stay stagnated as contributors to global workforce with just 2%. But let's look at the internal distribution within Asia. Look at India. India working age population expected to expand to 18.6% from 12% currently of the global labor force. Look at this. This is very important. Yani, Asia is losing 1%. But this loss is not meant to India. It is actually basically about China and Korea and Japan. Okay, while India will contribute more in the international labor force again. And as we said, contributing from now on in the international labor force means being competent, being knowledge-based, that you can find yourself in the international job market. Yes, please. India on the lead. A report on the future of jobs in India stated that with a 25% share, India is leading in terms on online labor market globally. That was what I was trying to say since the beginning of this presentation. Further, a study titled Workforce Agility Barometer reveals that for 56% of Indian firms, the proportion of temporary workers is more than 20%. That is, again, you cannot see it elsewhere. Okay, let's think about 20% share in India in future jobs. Okay, while India is controlling 54% of the international remote work, 24% are driving 56% or 54%. This is an efficiency factor. Again, in another meeting, we may discuss how labor force is efficient according to its distribution across the continents and countries. But for now, please remember this. What can we know? What lessons the COVID-19 give us about the general picture in the world? We know first that after the pandemic is totally different than before the pandemic. No matter what this future is, there is a new economy to emerge around the world. There are people who are going to benefit and people who are going to be more and more left out of the system. Mother Earth can exercise power, and you should know that now with the pandemic, people started to rethink their relation with Mother Earth, rethink how much their ungreen behavior led to what it led across the world, led to what it led by decreasing the immunity of people across the world, led to what it led to all this pandemic threat across the world. Our behavior and reaction is what counts. Some nations have failed to react properly to what's going to be in the future. And the more we can react efficiently, quickly, the more we can find ourselves in the new economy after the pandemic. As you can say, big governments in the world, big governments with somehow unlimited resources. Their reaction to the pandemic were really questionable. Countries, governments failed even to react to the pandemic. There was a time lag between the risk and reacting to this risk. And here there is a very important question. Tons of papers about disaster management. In the US, in Europe, disaster management, tons of papers and hundreds of thousands of conferences. And with this pandemic, these systems proved to be a failure because they didn't take care about such risks that their country may face. They were thinking about earthquakes, about hurricanes, but never about this health disaster. Lesson for us as humans, I think this coronavirus is very fast. It quickly goes viral, and that's why we have to be ready to go viral and be fast. We have to be ready for whatever comes in the future, which means we have to be flexible. We have to forget about that we were born for this mission, for this job. There is no more we were born for this job. We have to give from now on, because I think this is the message of the earth. I am the biggest giver. Please, you have to give. Don't be greedy that much. Don't think that you are there to make just cost-benefit analysis. At least let's develop a formula of win-win between Mother Earth and humans. All the habit then should be taken out. I don't know if we can, if you can see this clearly. This chart says who are the sectors in the economy that can most survive under these circumstances. I want to go to the green ones immediately. You can see metal and machinery, healthcare services, and again, we'll go back, we'll revisit healthcare services, high-tech manufacturing, professional services, India again, high-tech services, India again, and real estate, because real estate is considered as a last resort. Again, this is presented by their ability to live without cash flow, how many days they can live without cash flow. Can we move, please? Okay, what are the new sectors in the economy that can absorb workers? There is a green and white here, I think, there is red and white. I think red are the most important, but all the 10 presented are again the core of their new economy. Let's say health and public health sector investment will be driven by crazy to this sector. Health sector now will absorb maybe 10 times what was absorbing before, because now there is new awareness of the importance of public health, and the world proved to be in shortage for health services and health professionals. Service based on human creativity, including remote outsourcing services. Again, back to India. India has a big advantage in this, and this is an economy that will grow rapidly after the pandemic. Community service, everything that is based on the altruism economy, remote-based education and training, ICT in education, Again, huge investments are going to be in this sector. Fine arts, fine arts, fine arts, the sector that was put on shelf for many years, for many decades actually. Can we go back to the previous one, please? Okay, thank you. Fine arts now represents 3% of international GDP, but it is expected to grow above 10%, because I will tell you a short story here. People who are doctors, who are physicians, who are engineers, business people were asked before you went to school for engineering, for other majors, what was your dream profession? 70% of them said their dream profession was something related to art, music, paint, writing, whatever, etc. This fine arts sector has a new place in the new economy, and those who have some talent in the fine art, please don't say that we are going to fail. This time you are going to succeed. This time the world has money for you. Let's put down our old mindset. Now we have to change things that had to be changed 20 years before, but now the shock can lead us to do it. You have to forget about your degree. What do we mean by forgetting about your degree? Is not that you shouldn't go to the university, but you should know that the university is there to let you know how to think, and not to have not to be a terminal point for your knowledge. The university gives you the passport, and you have to search for your visas. And this means that you have to be your own teacher. After school, after university, education, knowledge never stops. It's a new start after that. And you have to develop yourself. And I think now we have a lot of venues to develop ourselves easily. We start from YouTube and finish with online selective learning. You can choose whatever online to study. You can choose any simple, very small, very specific point that you want to know about, that you want to get certified in, and you can do it easily now. You have to be flexible, which means from now on there is no, I want to work for 8 hours or I want to work for 6 hours. Sometimes you have to work for 14, and sometimes you have to accept that this is not time for work, this is time for self-development. You have to be gritty, the inner grit that lets you fall and up again, fall and up again, fall and up again. Gritty, being gritty is the name of the game. Everybody falls down. But the question is, what are we going to do after we fell down? Satisfaction consolidation. Don't be short-termer. Don't look at tomorrow. Tomorrow is after 10 years. Every 10 years, you will see how much you are satisfied if you work on yourself, but not the next year. Forget about the next year, okay? You have to develop skills that work cross-industry, because now the job market from now on is very sensitive due to this relation between innovation and knowledge and the knowledge workers. So your skills should be transferable now from one sector to another, because we are under the risk of some industries will go out of the market and new industries will rise. Never underestimate the power of intellectualism. What I'm saying here, I think, is very important. Intellectualism was put aside for decades and for no reason. Now we discover that these physicians, these doctors, these thinkers, these writers are the core of any community and any nation. Without these people, okay, nations cannot develop. This is a pure fact from thousands of years. But in the last decades, we forget what's the meaning of this. Being intellectual gives you the ability to think strategically. Thinking strategically, you can find yourself every day in the new economy. Don't say that I just understand, say, accounting. You have to see the big picture no matter what. Seeing the big picture means you have to be intellectual. Again, a personal advice, run away from that. That is only for investors, not consumers. That is a big burden. You cannot make a commitment for 20 years and you are not sure about your income for 1 year. Remember, that is not for consumers. I know that people are following a consumerism approach. Now it is not for more consumption. Now it is time to invest more in yourself and in your economy. Forget about the new car. Forget even about a better house. Your house is good. And if you want to go to a better house, try to rent a house. And your wealth should be reinvested in order for your future after 10 years. Your future after 10 years, if you are actually full of that, is not rosy. Be sure, no matter what you are doing, your future after 10 years will be no more rosy. Dispensing theory, you have to live on minimum. Test your ability to live on minimum. And when you are satisfied, satisfaction should mean for you that I am satisfying the human inside me. Even when I'm involved in community service, I'm not there to satisfy people around me. I'm not there to satisfy the media. I'm not there for the media to say, this is a good person, this has humanitarian thinking. I am there to satisfy this human inside me. No matter who is seeing this, okay, and no matter who's approving this. Yes, please. When the after coronavirus starts, now I think this is the best environment to start ourselves after corona. Yesterday, everything ends. Now we have to start to develop ourselves. While at home, this is a good opportunity to combine many things in a relaxing place. What is all about? It's all about us. Each of us should have a human mission. Without this human mission, we cannot survive in the future. The future is very complicated again. And to survive in this complicated world, we should have a mission. And this mission, for this mission to live, you should be visionary. You have to see how are you going to implement your mission. We are not talking here about corporate mission and vision. Now it is you. It is a person inside you. Before your job and before your expertise, before your achievement at work, you have your achievements towards your mission. And this is what makes you strong. What makes you strong is a combination of mission and vision through your own values. Humans are driven by values. Thank you for now, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Pierre. So participants, thank you for your patience, and that indeed was a fantastic lecture by truly an intellectual. Interestingly, Dr. Pierre alternated between the practical, the very practical, and the philosophical, and indeed the metaphysical sometimes. I would like to thank Dr. Pierre for being here. Dr. Rahul Dige, my colleague, now will share some of your questions with Dr. Pierre, and he will answer some of them in the interest of time. Maybe he can answer about 5 questions. What I can promise is that with Dr. Pierre's permission, I will share his email ID. You could also write to him directly. Like you could see, he's a fantastic person, and he would keep in touch with you. You could also connect with him on LinkedIn, and that would be a connection for a lifetime. I can assure you that you would benefit greatly in keeping in touch with him. I would hand over now to Dr. Dige and Dr. Pierre, and I will come back at the end once again to share a message after he finishes answering some of your questions. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Raoul. Dr. Raoul.
Hello, Dr. Pierre, can you hear me?
Yes. How shall we start with answering the questions?
Yes, so I have sent you some of the questions.
Yes, yes, please. So we start with Professor Rama, or the
Yes.
before. How much this pandemic will impact the world countries' investment toward research and development? Will it be the same approach towards R&D? Thank you for this visionary question. Look, everything intellectual, everything research, everything writing will be on the lead in the future, because now Mother Earth looks to be much stronger than us. And we have to rely on our minds, not on our pockets. Pockets couldn't protect us. Now what protects us is our mind, research, development, taking care of having more intellectuals. This is what protects. So yes, investment will go definitely to this place. We can take the R&D example from what big nations now are doing to find a cure for the coronavirus. How much billions are paying now at this moment? Billions are paying billions because they want to take the lead. Okay, now when they sit aside, they will say, we will not this come again without being prepared. Being prepared means actually spending more on intellectualism, spending more on R&D, spending more on thinkers, on writers, etc. Thank you, Professor Ramesh. And then Jansi, Dr. Jansi. Yeah, thank you too. It was indeed an insightful session. I'm Dr. Jansi Rani, and here's my question. What could be the challenges faced by HR professionals during the pandemic scenario? What is the role of HRs in restructuring career of employees as a new normal? I think HR in the new era have a greatest role of developing capacity of their employees. They left aside mission for most HRs because of cost cut before now. There is a struggle between HR and top management, how much we spend on development, and another struggle between HR and the community of employees on how much we spend on development. Now I think the question becomes very clear. Yes, you have to spend on development because only development will protect your corporation in the future. I think HR role now during the pandemic is very critical because these people are obliged to take decisions that are somehow against their values and missions. But this pandemic will go. We know that it will go. And the after pandemic is what is important for HR thinkers, HR practitioners, HR leaders. It is their role is to convince their management that it is not avoidable from now on to spend on development no matter what. It is from Jaideep Joshi. I have a question. there is going to be reduction in manual jobs due to automation. So what should plan today to do today for future employment? Mr. Jaideep, you have to develop yourself and be flexible, and for your capacities to be cross-industry. And this is what I said about forget about your degree. Forget about your degree slogan means that knowledge and education never stops. Yes, there are a lot of sectors that are going to disappear from our economy. But while disappearing, we have to produce something new in our CV. Every year we have to produce something new in our CV. And now you have tons of resources that you can refer to. Tons of training offered worldwide. Tons of online courses taken worldwide for you to build a new personality. Sometimes you may say, yes, I need an advice. If you need an advice, there is a lot of people. Me, your professors, whoever you believe can help you in drawing your future road. Okay, rely on them. But for sure now we cannot say, okay, we are good for this job and we cannot find ourselves in the market. If you cannot find yourself in the market, it means you have to change something. Something should be changed. This thing is your knowledge. This thing is your ability to work cross-industry. From Nadij, the outbreak has sent new roadblocks to developing countries like ours. In your opinion, how quickly can turn around? Nobody knows, actually, nobody knows, because now, today, this morning, the president of the IMF said, well, we don't know where we are heading to, but what we should know that this is, again, an opportunity. Sometimes a problem can be turned into an opportunity. We are home. We are free to redesign ourselves, to redesign, to re-engineer our lives, including to put a plan, a solid plan, to what are we going to do from now till this unknown date, and how to continue this after life back to normal. Nothing else can be added. Alaj, Ajay, Marshall, sir, as you said, arts contribution to GDP will increase. Thank you for this question, above 10%. How do you see the future of entertainment industry, especially Hollywood? Look, Hollywood experience is related to what lessons we are going to go with Hollywood, Bollywood also. Lessons we are going to with this pandemic. Distancing culture, the new distancing culture, how it's going to work, okay? But for sure, alternative media now is taking edge. Look, people are no more willing to go to the cinema, are no more willing to dedicate long time for one thing. This is very important. We are no more ready to dedicate a lot of time for one thing, having a movie for 2 hours. Instead, people have alternatives. See now, if you can observe the importance of 3 minutes videos, short informative videos with very strong message. This is a new wave in media, not traditional filming. Although traditional filming will still have its people to follow, okay? Now time is much distributed, between efficient media and traditional media. I'm not against filming, on the contrary, but you have to see what's going on in time management, international time management. People are working more, and they have less time for their families first. They are balancing between family and work, and we need the third time for us to develop ourselves, no matter what, by entertaining, by reading, whatever. But this is now very efficient. The choices are becoming more and more efficient.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Pierre. In the interest of time, you have answered 5 questions. I would ask you to answer a last question from a student of mine who comes from trimester 1. And she asks, her name is Smita. She asks, do you consider China a developed country or a developing country? It's a little bit of a controversial question, but that's her question. What do you think? Is China a developed country or developing country?
For me, I consider both China and India as developed countries.
Or you consider both China and India as developed countries? Very nice.
Yes, yes, according to my definition, and I will tell you why. Now, the degree of integration of knowledge is the basis for separation between nations. It is no more how much you are into industries, how much you are into physical industries. It is about how much integration you have in the new economy, and this will soon impose a new definition of what developing and developed are. Metropolitan countries, well known as developed countries, but these are metropolitan countries. In the new economy, the word metropole will be put aside. It is the human brain, it is technological capacity, it is research, it is patents, etc. Right. If we draw the line of patents, okay, if you think with me that what is the role of patents in deciding whether this country is developed or not developed, and then look at India's position. Patent-wise, look at India's position. You will see a very different story. Most of the European countries will go out of the list.
Yes.
India, China, US, Germany. Look at these 4. Japan, the 5th one, the weakest, but the 5th. These are the pillars for development in the new economy. Based on research, based on knowledge, and based on patents.
Wonderful, Dr. Pierre, and thank you very much. Heartfelt thanks from Dayananda Sagar University, Executive Education, the students of our Executive MBA program, the students of our full-time MBA program, my fellow faculty colleagues, members of my staff, faculty colleagues, and participants from other institutions. Thank you very much for being here. I would like to remind you that we continue with our distinguished speaker series tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock with the former Chief Marketing Officer of the Central Retail Stores, a group of Fortune Group company. Professor Jitendra Patri is an expert on retail management. Following that, next week, next Friday, we will send out details. We have Professor Chester Elton. Professor Chester Elton lectures at the Cornell University, Ithaca, New York. He is a guru on leadership and executive coaching. He's an author of many books, and he's going to talk on why gratitude is so important in leadership and why we must be grateful for what we have. Echoes of what Dr. Pierre AL-KHOURY talked about today. So before we sign off, thank you very much, Dr. Pierre, once again for being here with us today. And we wish you a wonderful time and stay safe, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Najaraj. Thank you all for your presence, for your time. And I just want to finish with a sentence by Arundhati Roy, your great writer. She said yesterday or the day before yesterday in the Financial Times, historically, pandemics has forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew.
This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one word and the next. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.